All right, so let me say hello and welcome to each and every one of you. Doug here with the LincolnList.com. I want to welcome you to another daily edition of Stock Market Mutterings, where my promise is to you, I will take a grope in the murkiness, try to make some sense out of the stock market, try to provide you guys with some quality trade setups in the attempts to help make you money. As always, if you need help, somewhere on the screen will appear a link. Feel free to trade live with me each day that the market is open. Now, as some of you can see, longtime followers of the channel, I am off of the road, off my Southwestern motorcycle trip. What an amazing time I had. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But I'm back now in my empire. Well, empire is sort of an exaggeration because it's a garage. That's where I work from. It's a garage. But anyway, man, guys, I had a great time. Spent maybe, 7-10 days. I can't really remember. Rode my bike all the way across the Southwest, over 1,500 miles, something I've always wanted to do. Met a lot of great off-gridders, camping. People who's been out vagabonding across the United States for years. It was amazing. Went to this isolated spot in the Grand Canyon and swam in the Colorado. Got heat stroke. Yeah, heat stroke in Utah. Did some off-road riding, but got some heat stroke, which I'm not going to talk about today, but I'll do a video on it later because it was bizarre. I just passed out on the bike, rode through the mountains of Utah, went to Page, Arizona, at Horseshoe Bend, camped out around that area, ended up in this place I've always wanted to go to called Sheep's Bridge. It's out in the middle of nowhere in the Tonto National Forest. Swam in the river there, had a great time. Then on the way back here to San Diego, I run into another motorcyclist who is suffering from heat stroke on the side of the road. Same thing, but the temperatures were high. Every single day it was 100, 110. I mean, it was rough. It was brutal. The last day I spent 9 hours on the bike, but I tell you what, I do it tomorrow. And it was just a great time. However, not all is great, because when I come back, we've got some adjustments here, right? I've just kind of been out of the loop a little bit. Number one, my computer, let me move this over here. My computer that I took with me, the screen came loose, so I got to go get that fixed here. So it's kind of broke. I'm going to have to use the other one. And as many of you know, I didn't, because we're here in San Diego. They must be putting in some kind of curfew with all of these riots. We've been fortunate enough, and heart goes out to all you guys that are in areas that are suffering, from riots and stuff. This is a really bad situation. I wish all of you the safest and the best. Fortunately, here in San Diego, we've managed to dodge that for right now. But I was unaware. I went to the grocery store yesterday, and I was like, because I'm out of food. And I go to the grocery store, I'm like, how come all the things are empty? All of the shelves are empty and the toilet paper is gone. Did we get a pandemic breakout? And it's like all of the windows are boarded up. And I'm like, oh, the riots. And they're closing the stores and all this stuff is out. So I didn't get anything. So I've been dining all day on whatever I had left laying around the house. I had some backpacking food, which is processed Kraft macaroni and cheese. Woo! So I got to get out of here and go to the grocery store early because they're closing. Man, what a wild time. What a wild life, huh? Never a dull moment. Anyway, guys, let's talk about some stocks, because if you saw the headline, I want to talk to you about how one stock has literally made my entire year, and it's going to build on a few things that I've already been talking about this year and a few webinars that I've done. So I'm going to kind of move over here to the webcam. We're going to use the other webcam from this one. Just bear with me. I'm going to get this thing fixed today. But it's good to be back. It's good to be back trading full time and working. It's cool. Trip was cool. It's good to be back too. So let's move over here. All right, that looks pretty good right there. That's where you're going to stay anyway until it's over. No one's going to leave until I say. How's that work? Does that work? Anyway, no, never mind. So let me talk about the title of this. When I said that this one stock that has made my entire year. And in order for me to do that, I want to go back and I want to talk about two webinars I did. One was at the beginning of the year. It was called The State of the Market in 2020. And what I was focusing on there as I talked, there was always this handful of stocks, these growth stocks, momentum stocks, whatever you want to call them. There's always a handful of stocks that start out in the 20s and 30s and end up in the hundreds and 200s every single year. And we saw it with things like GoPro years ago, Beyond Meat last year. There's tons like it. NVIDIA did this. Tesla was once $40. So they make these incredible moves. And you just sort of end up, if you're constantly trading, it's not like you're finding them before everyone else. They sort of end up on your watch list. The momentum sort of works its way through social media, and it ends up, you find these stocks and you know about these stocks. And the thing I said in that webinar is I wanted to focus more on these rather than just continually cycling new names in and out that I'm trading. I wanted to just focus on these 2 to 3 stocks. And then later on, a couple months later, I did a webinar about these particular stocks, and I talk about the one stock, one trade strategy. And this is where you're constantly looking at maybe 1, 2, 3 stocks or something like that. And the reason that works for people is because you start to pick up little nuances about these stocks, and it gives you that extra edge. Anyway, the purpose was to find these momentum stocks, and every opportunity I got to buy a dip, any pullback into support, any sort of panic flush of anything, I would buy them. And the ones I've always been talking about in these market mutterings, I mean, you can go back to about any one of them. I've been talking about TWLO, PAYC, PAYC, LULU, LULU, and the big one, which has been ZM. And that's the one that we're going to talk about because ZM has pretty much made my year. I mean, once I started seeing this one, I cycled continuously between TWLO, ZM, LULU, and PAYC. I traded those things just about every day. And I traded this ZM until I just basically gave up day trading it. And I just bought the damn thing like in the 150s or something as a swing and just sold it yesterday before its earnings. And the point I want to make about this is it's real easy when traders come in. You think you need a lot to make money. You think you have to be super brilliant, so to speak. And you don't. You just have to use some common sense. You don't have to trade every stock that's out there. You don't have to try to reinvent something and try to be spectacular in that route. I mean, the money, everything that you ever need, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from something as big as ZM. I mean, this is a case here. The stock is now pushing 210s, 220s. And you know what? Maybe it ends up like beyond and sells off 100. I don't know. It's starting to get to a point where it's probably too high to be messing with as far as an investment is concerned. Maybe that's not the case, but it's pretty steep right now. So I think a lot of that value is starting to come out of some of those. And we need to be looking around and finding other things that might fit that. Maybe like a Peloton, something that's currently trading in the 40s that may end up in the 100, something like TER, T-E-R, that's in the 60s, 70s that may end up there. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. The point I want to make is you don't have to be that complicated when it comes to trading. You simply look at these momentum leaders. You look at where that money cycle goes. This is another webinar I did, it was last year, about the money cycle. We're following this money cycle, and we're in this spot right now where tech itself, guys, is leading the market. We see it in the Qs. We see it in the staple names of things like Apple, Facebook, Netflix, Google, Amazon. We see that's where the majority of the money goes, and tech is strong. Now, what this means is there's no sense in you as a trader. One thing that I've learned that I could pass on to people is there's no sense in you trying to be a hero. When I say hero, we've got a group of people that come up and say, I want to buy these airlines because they're smoked or oil gets smoked. And it's like, you don't have to be the hero and pick the airlines off the absolute bottom. When stocks like Shop are running $25 a day, Restoration Hardware running $35 a day, you don't need to screw around with American Airlines and Delta Airlines when everything that you're looking for is right there in these names, because Delta Airlines isn't going to go up $35. And you're getting these moves not over the course of a year or 2 years. You're getting them in the course of an afternoon. Like just today, Restoration Hardware, 35. Wayfair, 21. Shop, 21. Deck, 8. TTD, 8. I mean, huge. Lulu's up $100 and some in the last month. I mean, just insane moves. So my advice here, what I'm trying to say, ZM's just one case. It could have easily happened with TWLO. That's a winner. Easily happened with Lulu if you just sat there all day. I don't know exactly where it comes from, what it is, how it is, or where it transpires. That's above my pay grade. All I'm saying is that you see these things, when they dip into support, if they cannot continue having a flush in the morning, then they don't. They just don't. I mean, Facebook is a good example. This is one that I traded today. Just showing you how that flow is coming in. You get a sell-off, and it looks, and all these sell-off guys, I'm trying to tell, until you see the tempo, and I'll tell you what you're really looking for. Until a move like this stays down, it's just a sucker move. It's just a move to screw you off or throw the scent off long enough to get people shaking. You start looking at this gap up, and then it sells. It's like, okay, and then it resells right here. You have this spot right here where it failed bounce, reclaims low. Now, when I first started trading, this little setup right here, this washout followed by a lower high, followed by a new low, meant this. Out, lights out. That was like out of that stock. It's toast for the moment. And they would keep going. Not anymore. Algos have changed this whole complexion of what we're talking about, right? And this is what we've got to be able to separate ourselves, especially the longer term traders, because they have a harder time adjusting, like myself, who once went with a market that had some sort of normal operation to whatever this thing is. You sort of have to go with the flow. You can't fight it, because I've said it before, we're sitting here right now in a situation where there's 30 million unemployed people. The nation's at this completely divided spot right now, and they're at each other's throats with the riots, and we still got the COVID. And the NASDAQ's like 2 ticks away from all-time highs. It makes no sense, and it's not up to us. We're not going to change that. But Facebook, getting back to it, it just finds a way to squeeze out. And when it squeezes out at the end of the day, it just, look what it does. It just goes and goes and goes. And these are what we're looking for. When we talked about that check mark webinar, this is what we look for. That's where the whole check mark pattern came in. Wash that thing down. Shake people, shake that tree, shake those chasers, shake those rookies, chase those people, and get them out of that stock, wash it out, and then jam it right back up and make everybody re-chase it. Make everybody who sold it re-chase it. And that's why we did that webinar. So that's where I'm going with all of this. It's senseless to keep bringing up 45 names on the watch list when you don't need that. You know what? You can build a life right now with Art Age, Wayfair, Shop, Deck, TTD, ZM, Lulu, Peloton, TWLO, TWLO, right there. Netflix, Nvidia, Facebook, Apple. You can cut it right there. There's even more. I look at other stuff, but there's things that are bolting that I don't trade all the time, like QLYS, OKTA, OKTA, which I talk about a lot. I don't trade all the time. QDEL, QDEL, Tesla, for God's sakes, Tesla, Shop. These things are just absolute animals. And that's where you should focus. You should pick those techs up. You should hit those support lines down at the bottom. And those are the ones that you should look for. So like going forward, I don't know how much room I've got left with ZM. I think it's going from a bigger day trade to maybe some scalps. It's, I'll be the first to say this is just an intraday chart, but this daily is cooked high. It's real high, as is Lulu. And I'm under no, delusions or whatever you want to call it, that these things won't correct at some point. They will. But right now, like I've said, one thing that I've also learned over years of trading is that I used to always think that, something like a Beyond was just going to tank. It doesn't quite happen like that. Only things like dry ships, stuff like that, does those immediate tanks. But it's not something that's just going to drop out of the sky here. It's going to fight the whole way down. These dips are going to get supported until they just keep getting washed out and then washed out. Like they did when we had the correction. That's how it happened. It was one initial event, failed bounce, and then all these supports just kept getting broken, and they kept doing that on heavier than normal volume. Until you see that, nothing's going to change here. The NASDAQ is going to go to all-time high. The SPY may very well follow. The Dow might very well follow. Nothing seems to be bothering this. So until, this is what traders must do. Until that changes, you don't change. You're in an aggressive risk-on market. Buy those dips. Just buy those dips. Find the supports. Buy those dips. And they're going to take care of you right now. That's what it is, man. That's how you do it. And focusing on just those one stock, two stocks, has made my year so much easier. I've made more money already than last year. Not the whole year, but more than I was at this spot. But the stress the stress level is so much lower. So I hope that's some piece of advice. And I'm not a big ton of a watch list here, but I'm not going to be one of those people that just say, oh, this is the next hot stock. I mean, the next hot stock is the same hot stocks we were trading. The next hot stock is the hot stock now, which is ZM, which is Docu, which is Shop, which is Netflix, which is Google, which is Amazon, which is Peloton. And, you know, the day comes when some of these start to stretch. I think if we're talking about the future here and we're looking at what's the next ZM, what's the next stock that could reach the hundreds, that's where I'm looking at. Peloton. Something like PTON. Peloton is looking pretty good. TER. But there'll be other things that show up, and we'll see them and we'll catch them and we'll stay with them. So, guys, thanks for watching. Glad to be back. You have any tips, comments, quarrels, suggestions, make sure you send them to me, support@lincolnlist.com. Need help with your trading? Make sure you trade with me live. I appreciate your support. Oh, and if you like it, subscribe to the channel and click the bell. Click the little bell icon next to the subscribe. That way, every time I issue a new video, you'll get notified. And you'll be smarters. Smarters and richers. That's all I want you to be. All right, until next time, guys, take care. Trade well.